But yeah, I mean, you have a predisposition. You can't just blame everything on that. I mean, otherwise you won't get any fit Indians. I mean, it's not that there are no fit Indians. There are.
Mm.
Yes, there are. I'm Dr. Ankur Verma, and I practice emergency medicine here in New Delhi, India. And recently, I've switched my focus to metabolic health, and I'm just trying to bridge emergency medicine and metabolic health together, because a lot of patients that come into my department have metabolic illnesses, for which I've just been treating them with medicines for so many years. And I just realized that I'm not doing them much good except saving their lives at that moment, but not further down their life or whatever that's left of it. So yeah, I mean, that's basically who I am. I'm not trained in metabolic health. I'm not trained in nutrition. None of the doctors are. I did my own research for the past 3 years, and I'm still learning. It's a process that's going to continue always.
And what's your as you deal with emergency medicine, what is your kind of view of your overall kind of general view of health in India?
India is one of the sickest populations. I know a lot of people keep saying that America is the sickest population, and I think if India is not number one, they're very close to the Americans. And it's not because of the standard American diet that the people eat here. It's because of the standard Indian diet, which is full of which is basically a vegetarian diet and a very high carb diet and a very high fiber diet, and it's not doing them any good. Diabetes has been documented in India since about 3 to 4 thousand years. So yeah, I mean, it's not just the junk food or the refined oils that are causing these kind of illnesses in India. And right now, I mean, 70% of the Indian population is overweight. 17% of the diabetic population in the world are Indians staying in India, but I'm pretty sure a lot of Indians who are outside of India also are diabetic. Uh, a lot of people don't even know that they're diabetic or pre-diabetic. Even in my department, we have a lot of patients coming in. I mean, I'm doing a research right now, and right currently my footfall out of the footfall, the patients who've been included into my study, 25% of them are diabetics, right? And this doesn't include the patients that my team missed out on asking questions from. This does not include patients who did not give their consent to get included into the study. This does not include patients who were declared dead on arrival and probably were diabetic or hypertensive or had heart disease. So the numbers are way above 30%. I'm pretty sure about that. A lot of people cite the Lancet study that 11% of Indians are diabetic. That's a gross underestimation. I mean, you look around India, you'll see only obesity all around. You'll see pot bellies all around. You'll see completely unfit people walking around, and there's again. So even in my department, like I was talking about, 25%, there are a lot of patients who come in who do not know that they have comorbids. That's one of our inclusion criteria. You need to have a documented comorbid condition that you're on treatment for, then you're included. Like today, I had a patient who was about 100 kilos who said, I have no past medical history. It's because he never got checked up. But I'm pretty sure that you're metabolically sick. I'm pretty sure that you're diabetic or pre diabetic or hypertensive, fatty pancreas, hypothyroid. Something is going on. You've just not got yourself checked. So, I mean, 110%, half the population in India is sick, and we see that every day, and it's from the young ages all the way up to the geriatric population in the 60s. It's there. I mean, I had a 21-year-old kid come in, and because of religious reasons, he's a vegetarian, he's a Jain. No offense to them, but then I was speaking to his father, and I explained the whole thing. I mean, he'd been having fainting spells in the past few days, and I told him this is going to happen because your son is undernourished. He doesn't have micronutrients. And he actually sat down and listened to me and told me that none of the doctors have ever explained root causes of his illnesses before. I'm like, let me test his vitamin B12 and his homocysteine levels, and you will be surprised what I get. His B12 level was just 76 at 21 years of age, because he's never had any meat products. He's never
Yeah,
had
yeah.
vitamin B. I'm like, this could be one of the reasons why he's having these kind of fainting spells. So
What other diseases are you seeing that are kind of really popular? Could you kind of list, go through like a laundry list of the diseases?
Oh yeah, I love this.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you've got diabetes, you've got hypertension, you've got coronary artery disease, you've got hyperthyroidism, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, PCOS, asthma, rheumatoid arthritis, um, cancers, a lot of cancers. Then you have chronic kidney diseases coming in. A lot of them come in because of their diabetes and because of their hypertension. So, these are some of the metabolic syndromes that are very, very rampant. Non-alcoholic fatty liver, a lot of them. This kid, 21 years old, has fatty liver grade 1 at 21. I mean, and this was because I got them to do these tests. Otherwise, no other doctor would have got these tests done because, they're like, oh, he's having fainting spells, why get an ultrasound abdomen? But I knew he's going to get a fatty liver, and he did. Uh, So his dad was a little confused what to do.
So for me, traditionally, like I understand that the Indian diet is kind of vegetarian. Is that how you would explain it to people, or is this something that is, there's the difference between ancient and tradition, right? So there's an ancient diet. My cultural background is Nigerian. Um, I assume that, from the stuff that I've read and kind of looked at, I assume that my people's ancient diet was meat based, but the traditional diet is grain based, is heavily grain based. Is that the same thing in India? Would you say, in your kind of opinion?
See, ancient diet was definitely meats, for sure. We are also the descendants from the Indus Valley civilization, and the utensils that were studied from the Indus Valley civilizations when they did the carbon dating and all of that, whatever physics and chemistry that they used for that, they found out that all the utensils were lined with a lot of lard and meat fats. Obviously that means that they used to also eat meats. So that was definitely in the ancient times. And if you look at traditionally, even Hindus, a lot of people think that the Hindus have always been a vegetarian population. They've not. The higher there used to be a hierarchy in Hindu religion, and people have this caste-based system in India, and even the Brahmins, who were supposed to be the sanct to sanct, uh, you know, they used to eat beef themselves. And then once they saw that the untouchables were also eating beef and the Buddhists were also eating beef, they thought, we can't be the same as them. So, they just proclaim that eating beef is a sin. And we as Hindus or as Brahmins should not be eating meats. I'm still doing more research into that because, I'm pretty sure I'll find texts written by somebody which is going to contradict that. So that fight is always going to be there.
I've heard in like the Hindu religion, I forget the name for it, but it's the idea of do no harm. So in that idea of do no harm, that is the extension and the reason for not eating meat. But then I've also heard of something that, apparently there's something in some Hindu texts about meditation and how meat actually grounds you. So when you're too kind of esoteric and too in the air, eating meat will kind of ground you and return you to, to kind of like a balance. But I don't know what you've come to in your reading.
So, the first textbook of Ayurveda or internal medicine, written by one of the first few physicians in India, Charaka and Sushruta, they have a lot of mentions of meats, eating meats to stay healthy and to get healthy if you ever get sick. Meats as aphrodisiac, meats as, antidotes for poisons and toxins. Uh, and so it's been there for so many years. That book was written in, like, I think 380 or something like that. So yeah, even in those days, meats were always valued for the nutrition that they would give and the powers that they would give us. So yeah, it's always been there.
And so how did you? So now the kind of the climate in India is kind of like vegetarian based, right? So how did you get to finding out that meat is a solution for all of these kind of illnesses and syndromes and disorders.
Yeah, I mean, so India is not 100% vegetarian. We are still about 30-40% who claim to be omnivores.
Hmm.
And, but unfortunately, most of these omnivores eat meats maybe once a week, twice or thrice a week, or maybe once a month, which is not carnivore, which I won't even call omnivore. That's more like plant based,
Hmm.
and adding in a little bit of meats. For myself, if I talk about myself, I've enjoyed meats since I was born. That's what my family also tells me. From the age of 2, I would go around clucking in the kitchen asking for chicken, or I would just show of hands that I want to have some fish and all that. And then if I would go to my grandparents' place, there would be a separate chicken or a mutton dish made just for me and a separate one for the rest of the family. So I've always loved my meats. So I had that basic instinct. But we would also have a carbohydrates along with that. And then there will be days where I would have just my
Hmm.
vegetarian food, being an Indian, and I mean, we were always brought up on vegetarian food also. And
Hmm.
carbohydrates, as you know, are uh, really good for the palate. And you can just keep eating and
Hmm.
eating and eating. It's bad for your brain and the rest of the body, but you just keep eating and eating. So yeah, so I've always had that.
Yeah.
And then once I started working out, I had a lot of trainers come in and go, and they would always tell me, eat whatever you like. I mean, you're working out so much, you need to take in a lot of calories, just 4,000 calories, 5,000 calories, I don't know, have all the sweets you want, or have all the meats and everything else. And then one fine day in 2021, after I'd got COVID, I just got my lipid profiles done, just done for the sake of it, or just like a pre-health check or something like that. And my triglycerides hit 600, which and I was like, just this can't be right. And I still didn't. I knew that was because of my carbohydrate intakes, but it was more of processed sugars that I thought of. So I used to have junk food also. I would have a burger a week or a pizza a week. We'd have some those family days. So then I cut off all sugars in my diet, all the processed sugars at least, and my triglycerides started to come down. But my HDL was also very low because my triglyceride to HDL ratio was 16.86. That's probably unheard of by a lot of people. And but it was still low. And I knew for HDL I need my red meats, but then my LDL was also high, so I was a little confused at that time because I was still the conventional doctor, and I thought, this is not good that my LDL is still high and my HDL is low. What do I do? So I stopped having red meats. I'll try and bring it up with eggs and stuff. And I was put on statins for the LDL. And then I read up through my cousin. I found the book called Metabolical by Professor Robert Lustig from UCSF. Yeah. He's a pediatric endocrinologist, and that just opened up my world to metabolic health. I read that, and I'm like, I mean, I can actually do this. I've never been trained in nutrition, and whatever advice I've been giving others and whatever advice I've been giving myself is probably just garbage. So through that book, then I read more books, I read more articles, every papers that even Professor Lustig had cited, and then through that, you just go down the rabbit hole and start reading more. And I always knew that meats were good for you, for sure. Then I got into statins and other drugs, and I understood, what the hell am I doing? So I stopped my statins. I was also a little hypertensive at that time, so I stopped my hypertensive medications also, just in those 4 or 5 month period that I was put on the antihypertensives at that time. And because my blood pressures at that time were like 160 by 100. When I saw my triglycerides at 600, I was like, let me check my BP, and it was high. Checked it for a week, it was still high. Uh, but so I was put on antihypertensives, stopped that. So I basically started doing a calorie count at the start. Just brought down my calorie intakes using the app. I know that's no good, not too good, but yeah, I mean, it helped me at that time. Yeah, yeah, it helped at that time, and I cut off all my sugars, like I told you. My carbs, so I was having only rice as my carbs, but the quantity I had really cut down.
Mm.
Some sort of like a keto. And then I came across Paul Saladino's reel when he was fully carnivore, And I'm like,
Hmm.
this actually does make sense. So I started reading up more articles, more papers, more textbook articles regarding animal proteins and plant proteins and fats and saturated fats and everything else, all the nutritive things from different
Hmm.
sources. I just didn't follow anyone blindly. But then I
Yeah.
figured out, and I also watched changes in my own body. A lot of symptoms disappeared. My blood pressure settled even after stopping the antihypertensives. My triglyceride to
Hmm.
HDL ratio reversed from 16.86 to 1.6. So, a lot of changes happened in me. I met a lot of other people on carnivore, and it was easy for me because I was like, I've always loved my meats, so it's not going to be difficult for me. And it wasn't. It was a quick switch. And then I got into anti-nutrients. I found a lot of that. Oxalates. I met Sally K. Norton, read a book, and it made a lot of sense because when I was cutting down my weight, I lost 23 kilos. I used to have oats for breakfast every day for a year. I used to take that to work, and my jaws had started to get stuck and started clicking, and I had no idea why the hell was that happening. And I had no idea about oxalates, so I went to the my oral surgeon, my facial surgeons, and I asked, what is happening? And they didn't know. Yeah, I'm brushing my teeth, and cut, 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 cut. It's just clicking and all of that. And once I went carnivore, obviously I stopped the oats, right? And and when I realized about oxalates, I had already been off oats for like 3 or 4 months by the time I realized what oxalates and the anti-nutrients are all about. And then I realized that the clicking doesn't happen anymore.
So it makes you wonder, like when people, like I'm into fitness. So, at one point I was like, my joints are really hurting me. My elbows are, this is age, I must be getting old. Um, and then when I started to eat more meat, those joint pains kind of like lessened.
Yeah.
And at the moment, I don't have any of those joint pains. Like I'd wake up and kind of have this weird like pain in my foot, and I'm like, why is there this kind of odd pain in my foot, and it feels so delicate, and I don't get those things anymore. And it just makes you think like people will assume that it's age as opposed to diet.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, all these people kind of complaining of, sore backs and sore knees, and, and it could effectively be because you are kind of excess oxalates in your system.
Yeah.
Like you're having those oats in the morning, like everybody does, porridges or, whatever cereals, whatever grains they're having for their breakfast. And that's what's contributing to the so-called aging.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's sad how aging has become synonymous with sickness. You know, People just
Mm,
feel, if you're growing
mm,
old, you're just gonna fall sick, and that's the cycle of life. But it's actually not. It's
mhm,
it's quite sad that we think like that.
mhm,
A lot of my friends, even they're like, once we hit 30 or 35, we'll need antacids, we'll get GERD symptoms, we'll have heartburns. And it does happen because we're not eating right, but we feel it's because of our age that we're getting sick. And then that turns to fatty liver, then it turns to prediabetes, diabetes, hypertension, all of that. And you're like, oh, this was supposed to happen. I don't want to die too
mm,
late. I don't want to die of complications. It's not going to happen if you're going to eat right.
mhm, mhm. Have you seen? So I guess in your practice, and now that you're introducing this way of eating to people, have you seen any kind of remarkable recoveries or some reverses in biomarker numbers, from people who've got serious chronic illnesses?
So it's difficult to follow my patients who come to the emergency department. They're not everybody that I can talk to. There are some who are
Hmm.
very receptive, but they don't usually follow back with me. I mean, it's like any doctor-patient relationship. Even if I give them medicines, I don't know if they're going to take it or not, and I don't know if they're going to follow up with me or not. But then I have a lot of friends and family who I've put on carnivore, and they have to follow with me because I'm the only one that they have. Otherwise, they'll be put on
Hmm.
medications by another doctor. So yeah, my
Hmm.
uncle, he reversed his diabetes of 25 years. He was supposed to go on to insulin dialysis in January. I put him on carnivore, and by the end of Feb, he was off all the medication that he's been taking for the past 25 years. Same with his blood pressure medications, and he's off all of that. My wife had hypothyroidism. I put her on carnivore, removed oxalates from her diet, and that reversed in like a month. Uh, uh, one of the very, very close friend of mine for 30 years. His HbA1c in, I think, Feb came out to be like 8.6 or something like that, obese. So he's lost about 18 or 19 kilos. His HbA1c has gone down to, I think, 4.8 or 5 now. So he's doing really well. So I mean, yeah, all of these numbers really well, and even the CRP, so the high sensitivity CRP, which is an indicator for inflammation, that also comes down quite a bit.
Have you got any kind of examples of people with, say, cancer or heart disease or anything like that?
So the uncle I spoke to you about, he had or he has left renal tumor, kidney tumor. That's what he was diagnosed with in January also, and they wanted to put him on dialysis, which I didn't allow them. So obviously, in the start, he was put on immunotherapy and some other medications, but I put him on strictly on a carnivore diet so that that helps facilitate the immunotherapy that he's going to get, and sort of asked him to fast for like 24 to 36 hours every week, and especially during when he's supposed to get the injection, just starve the cancer cells of all the sugars, and then when you get the immunotherapy it might be effective. And it's really surprising because the first PET scan after his therapy, which was in about 2 months or something like that, actually showed his lung mets disappear. He had lung mets when he was diagnosed with the cancer. He had lungs and mediastinal lymph nodes where it had metastasized. But the lung mets disappeared, and the mediastinal lymph nodes had reduced in numbers and sizes in just 2 months. Even the doctors were a little surprised. We got the kidney removed in after about another 3 or 4 months in April or May, because it's really starting to hurt him, and we didn't want it to spread locally from there, right? So we got that removed, and it's a major surgery to remove your kidney, but he was out of the hospital in like 2.5 days. That's how fast he recovered. Again, the surgeons were quite surprised at the rate of his recovery. So yeah, I mean, it's really helped. There's another uncle of mine. I've asked him to go carnivore. I've asked him to listen to all the podcasts that I've done with
Mm,
Professor Seafried and the other resources that we have. I've sent them all to him. It's up to him if he
mm,
wants to, get onto it, because I know he's a carb addict and a sugar addict, so it's going to be a little
yeah.
difficult for him. But
It's hard to get people off the carbon sugar. I've listened to a couple of podcasts with Thomas Seafried, and yeah, his explanation of therapeutic ketosis and how valuable that is for cancer is just, it's mind blowing when you listen to it. And I guess, like, you're sending these podcasts to friends and family. Um, I guess from a wider perspective, as an advocate for, low carb and, carnivore and keto, what what obstacles in, say, the medical profession or kind of like wider society in India do you potentially get, maybe from a political point of view, a cultural point of view, a traditional point of view? What kind of obstacles are you having to kind of to jump?
so, thankfully, I've not had any backlash yet.
Okay,
So
you haven't been
yeah,
cancelled.
I haven't been cancelled yet. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But I do share my podcast and my Instagram and with my team and my team of doctors
Mm,
whenever they meet. So they've all understood, even if they're not able to practice it themselves, because they have very tough routines. Most of them are
mm,
residents, still doing their emergency medicine residency. So I mean, it's understandable that their diet and the routines would be a little screwed up, but
mm,
they've started asking patients what they eat, and what they should eat, and then they pass on my podcast to them, they pass on my Instagram to them, and there are a lot of followers who start I mean, there are a lot of people who started following me. So that's how it
mm,
spreads. When I go to conferences, no matter what topic I get, I always start off with what we're doing as doctors. It doesn't matter what kind of disease process I'm going to talk about.
mm,
Mostly, all of them comes down to non-communicable diseases, except if we talk about traumas. And
mm,
and I'm just trying to open the eyes of the Indian doctors, at least, as to what we're doing, even as emergency physicians, and as doctors, are we curing anybody, and reversing their syndromes and getting them off their medications or not? And if we're not, then is that why we became doctors?
Hey, sorry for the interruption. This is the voice of Iffy from within the edit. Please can you do us a favour and help us appease the algorithm gods by liking this video or commenting below. Now back to Dr. Ankur Verma.
As doctors, are we curing anybody and reversing their syndromes and getting them off their medications or not? And if we're not, then is that why we became doctors? So,
Mm.
I mean, there's a little bit of interest that gets generated over there. And then I have people coming up to me and, I mean, they talk about how they're vegetarian and, it's difficult for them to go into carnivore or eat any meats because of religious issues. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm not religious. I mean, I, it's simple. I mean, if something that's going to deter you and not let you be healthy and not get healthy and is restrictive shouldn't be followed. And I mean, I have nothing against any of the religions. I just don't believe in any religion. I mean, I'm very secular, very liberal. I mean, for me, probably humanity is a religion, and that's about it. And that's what it should be. I mean, if you're restrictive, I see patients every day who are restrictive because of the religions, and they're on 17 or 18 medications, and they would rather die than have the foods that are going to help them. So the religion's not helping them. I mean, you can't put it all on God that this is what God wanted out of me. That's just a defense. That's just an excuse, I think. It's become an excuse if it was not earlier. No offense
So,
to anybody.
no offense to anybody, yeah, be careful. um, so, so, see, the difficulty with with the religion thing is, for me, sometimes I think there is some truth in. So, for example, there's truth in vegetarianism, right? Or there's truth in being whole food vegetarian. But the problem is, majority of people, or from what I've seen, I'm not, it may be completely different in India, but the majority of people who claim to be vegetarian or vegan are not whole food vegan or vegetarian. They are junk food vegan or vegetarian. And it seems to be that it's the junk food, it's the ultra processed food that causes far more kind of illnesses and issues than anything else. But I don't know what the state of play is in India. Is it would you say that people have switched from whole food to kind of ultra processed food, or is it kind of vegetarian as a whole, or vegan or plant based as a whole that is the issue?
Yes, junk food has definitely taken a place in everybody's lives, for sure, but not as much as the other countries. So, I mean, you'll find a lot of families that'll have probably biscuits, 1 or 2 biscuits a day, and probably have junk food once a week. But most of the patients that we get are like 60s, 70-year-olds, and Indian 70-year-olds usually do not, binge on junk foods. The patient I was talking to you about earlier offline, where I had a 21-year-old come in, he's a Jain. Uh, they don't believe in too much of junk foods. I mean, they're like no garlic, no onion. Also, so I mean, when I spoke to his father, I asked him, does he eat junk food? He's like, yeah, a lot. I'm like, how much? How many times a day? He's like, no, he just eats once a week. I'm like, okay, fine. Once a week is not okay. I mean, once a week is fine, but the rest of the 6 days, you're still having your rice and your dal and your chapatis and stuff, which are all whole grains. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, so he's not getting his nutrients.
It takes me back to my uni days. I had a close friend of mine who was his family was from India, and I would try and get him into fitness, get him into training, and he was like, "Oh, I can't lose weight, I can't get into shape because genetically my people are not predisposed to getting into shape and all of this." And I was like, "This guy's making excuses. He's just kind of giving me all of this, giving me all of this chat so that I don't push him, to kind of go to the gym and stuff." And it wasn't until I think it was last year, actually, I came across this concept, or this thing called starvation adaptation, and it was in reference to the famines in India,
Yeah.
and how effectively genetically um, Indians hold on to fat, and they kind of are more sensitive to
Yeah.
carbohydrates than other people because of that history of, the history of the famine. Um, like, where do you, like, kind of, when people say that, look, this is a genetic predisposition, this is the reason for the state of India's health at the moment. Where do you stand with that? Where do you go with that?
I mean, I still think it's an excuse. I mean, you might have a genetic predisposition, but then if you have a predisposition, you have to activate that, right? And if you're not eating right, those genes are going to get activated for sure. It's like people when they might have a genetic predisposition to get a cancer, but then that gene is just waiting for you to overload on your glucose and glutamine, and then there it goes. It's got the switch and it's got the go ahead, and that's what's going to happen. And when you check the genes and stuff, and obviously you'll find all the positive results for all the genetic tests and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you have a predisposition. You can't just blame everything on that. I mean, otherwise you won't get any fit Indians. I mean, it's not that there are no fit Indians. There are.
Mm.
Yes, there are. I mean, and there are a lot of carnivore fit Indians also. There are a lot of vegetarian fit Indians also. A lot of them, and they all need their supplements. I have to add that on. They all need their
Yeah.
supplements. And if you need to supplement your food, it's not optimum.
So when I was vegan, one of the arguments that was always kind of in my top pocket was, oh, there are these Indian wrestlers that they're vegetarians. So you can get strong, you can get healthy, you can thrive on a vegetarian diet. Um, what's your now that you're carnivore and with what you see on a regular basis? What would be your kind of argument or position with regard to people saying you can't thrive on a plant-based diet? Like, if that's the case, why are these people thriving, or are they just a small number of people, and they've been used to kind of support an argument that is is not very strong?
2 days back, we had one of the national marathon champions of India come in with a heart attack. He's really fit, but he's a vegetarian, right? So a lot of people might be physically fit. You don't know what's happening in their metabolism, and a lot of the doctors don't know what to check for and what not to check for. I remember even in the book that I was reading, Metabolical, where Professor Lustig had spoken about a triathlete who had come up to him, and he was doing a lot of things, but he had a heart attack, and he was wondering why this happened to me. And then it was brought down to some caffeine loaded energy drink that he was drinking before the marathons that or the triathlon that he used to go for, which obviously was causing regular inflammation in him, right? So you might have a lot of athletes who look fit. I mean, you probably who Virat Kohli is. He's supposed to be a vegan now, one of the best cricketers in the world. But earlier he was an omnivore. He's a Delhi guy, and he used to love his meats and everything. And probably he had some gut issues, but I don't think those gut issues was because of the meats that he was eating. It could be because of the refined oils that the foods were cooked in whenever he used to have street foods and stuff, the fibers that he was eating. But he's vegan now. I can't claim to know him, but I'm pretty sure that he takes his supplements. He would require to take supplements. Uh, and so would others. I mean, a lot of wrestlers also in India, they're built on milk and ghee,
Mm.
and those are really how powerful they can be. So it's not
Mm.
just that, but the thing is, again, I have a lot of physically fit people coming in also with metabolic disorders who are
Mm.
vegetarians, and they don't know what metabolic disorders are all about. They don't know when
Mm.
that they've become pre-diabetic. They don't know when diabetes will hit them. They don't know they're having non-alcoholic fatty liver, or maybe females might be having PCOS. So, I mean, I can't say that I can't vouch for all of them.
Mm.
but it's something that can be looked into. Definitely. I mean, we can have
Yeah.
all the vegetarian and vegan stars line up, and
And
test.
test them.
Yeah, you have,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
every 6 months
Well,
do the test that I want them to do.
that would solve an argument, right? Um, yes, there's one thing that I say to a lot of people is there's a difference between fitness and health. You know, people conflate the two so easily. They'll see their favorite fitness celebrity online, and they'll be like, "I want to do what they're doing because I think that's going to be healthy." Or you hear in the media, one sec, you hear in the media, this person was fit, they shouldn't have passed or they shouldn't have died, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a conflation, I think so. What's your fitness journey been? You seem to have got into fitness quite recently. I've looked at your before and after pictures, and they're pretty impressive, man. So like, yeah, tell us about your journey.
Yeah, so I mean, like I mentioned before, I started working out a long time back. I think 2006 or something. Uh, Amateur at that time, how just out of med school, want to get into shape, going to different gyms, getting to know my body, the form, and all of that. Trying out all the different kinds of exercises, getting into a routine. But yeah, I had a lot of trainers and a lot of different gyms. But the most important part is none of them actually spoke about nutrition to me,
Mm,
how important that was. Probably they didn't even know what
mm,
to suggest because I'm pretty sure most of them were always on steroids. And having their proteins, yeah, that's one thing that they would always suggest. Yeah, have your proteins, but none of them would have known about metabolic health and metabolic fitness. But over the years, and especially in the last 3 years, where I've realized, uh, I used to always think that yeah, I'm physically fit.
mm,
Now, when I look back, I probably wasn't. But then what I've understood is if you get metabolically healthy,
mhm,
you will become physically and mentally healthy too. It's going to happen. I mean, like you just mentioned before we started that it doesn't look like I've driven through 4.5 hours of traffic and rain
mm,
when we started off, and that's been happening with me, where I've realized that I've become calmer and do not get razzled really quickly. So that's mental health, right? I mean, I'm just more calm, and even in my physical fitness, I've realized that I have more stamina. I've got leaner muscle than I used to have before. I was probably marbled at that time
mm,
because of all the carbs that I used to eat, probably had a lot of fat in my muscles.
mhm,
But I've got much leaner, which obviously looks better on anybody. So yeah, I mean, and I've always loved weight training. I've always enjoyed weight training. I mean, I don't mind trying out things like, calisthenics sometimes or maybe yoga sometimes. Not that I know how to do them,
mm.
but if introduced, I can always use them as, for a change
Or a
from
supplement or something.
from resistance. Yeah.
Mhm,
So I've always enjoyed weight training, and a lot of studies have also shown that weight training is with resistance is actually important for you to
mhm,
not become sarcopenic later on in life.
mhm, mhm,
You need those lean muscles later on in life to prevent you from fractures and injuries that might happen due to, just this trivial traumas.
mm. So, like, I've been into fitness for forever. And when I started, I was a skinny kid. And it was a lot of bullying that got me into lifting weights and kind of packing on size. So at one point, I kind of looked like a rugby player. I've kind of slimmed down a little bit now. Um, but I was big into the whole supplement thing back then. So I was taking creatine and protein powders and GABA and all of these things that I definitely now looking back didn't need. Um, so now that you've kind of gone carnivore and seen your health improve and being a medical doctor, like what is your view and standpoint on supplements? And then the other kind of spectrum, the other angle is medication. What's your standpoint on both of those?
I'm not very pro medication for sure. even earlier, I was not very pro medication. Yeah, I was like, it needs to be justified. If you need to put somebody on a medicine, don't just put them for the sake of it. If you think the patient or the person does not require medicine, tell them you don't require any medicines. This is gonna phase out or fade out. But now I'm even more so after going carnivore and after realizing as doctors we've only sold medications. I mean, uh, especially statins and OHAs and antacids and PPIs and all that. Not very pro all of that. Supplements again, like I told you, if you're having a diet where you don't get all your nutrition from and all your nutrients, if basically not having a nutrient dense diet, you'll have to supplement yourself. Uh, but again, it's not going to help because you again have a lot of side effects and stuff. I mean, something like B12, it's cobalamin, and then when you supplement it, it's cyanocobalamin, which is basically a group of cyanide, and everybody knows cyanide is a poison. So why would you want to microdose yourself with that poison? And even iron tablets, if you're going to take iron tablets, there's a lot of side effects. You get a lot of stomach ache, you have black stools and stuff, and can always mix that up with GI bleeding and all of that. I mean, you have your meats properly. You won't require to supplement on vitamin B12 and iron,
Mm.
and then you have your proteins. I mean, you're not going to get high quality essential amino acids through plant proteins. That's not going to happen
Hmm.
for sure.
Hmm.
You'll end up eating way more carbohydrates. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think that lentils have a lot of proteins. No, they don't. They have a lot of lectins. They have a lot of phytic acids, and they have three times the amount of carbs. And then if you need those essential amino acids, and if you really want to go like 1 gram per pound of your body weight, you'll have to eat kilos of those
Hmm.
lentils to get something. And then you know what's going to happen to you and your gut.
What is your typical meal, your typical day in food?
So my breakfast is always eggs because I have my breakfast and then go to work.
Hmm.
So like let's take for example today morning I had about 7 eggs
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
breakfast, and I had about 500 or 600 grams of chicken soup that was made at home. So it's got 500 grams of chicken and then the broth on top of that.
Mm.
So that was about 5 or 600 grams. And then I'm gonna have my dinner after we're done with the conversation. That's gonna be about 500 600 grams of chicken for today. So today is a chicken day.
Hmm.
Tomorrow would be probably I don't know, pork or mutton or something like that. Let's see. I mean, my wife calls up during the day. What do you have for dinner? And so the chicken I'm having for dinner today, I'll take for
For
lunch
lunch
tomorrow
tomorrow.
also.
Good, good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, some people will have, I think a lot of people have a misconception about India that you cannot get hold of meat. For some reason, there's no meat in India. Um,
Oh, no, no, no. We do.
like oftentimes, I think in the maybe the carnivore circles, they will talk about, India being, the cow is sacred. So because the cow is sacred, no one touches meat. They'll mention things like slaughterhouses being closed down and, all of this.
Yeah, yeah.
But as you said earlier, 30% of people are omnivores. So it's not like there is a shortage of meat.
No, there's a lot of meat. You go to any store, I mean, you go to any neighborhood, you will definitely have a meat shop. It's just that people eat very less meat. I mean, a per capita consumption of meat is just 3.7 kilos per person per year, which is which I can eat in like 2 days, maybe. Yeah, that's it. And this has come down from 5 kilos. And compare that to Hong Kong, which is like about 220 kgs per person per year. Mm, some other Southeast Asian countries would have like 150, 180, but yeah, 3 kgs is and a life expectancy is 67%. Why is that?
So what would you say the barriers are then in that case? If there is a lot of meat that's available in India, is it well, maybe it's a combination of everything. Maybe it's a combination of culture, politics, tradition, habit. Is that how you describe it? Is that the reason why?
So all of the things that you said, plus wrong education, the myths and the propaganda that has been out there,
Mm.
and then obviously religion
Hmm.
is another really, really important factor.
Mm.
Politics, not that much. Politics is only for the beef,
Mm,
but not for the rest of the meat. Sometimes, yes, it does pisses us off when somebody says that all the meat shops should be closed on one particular day because of some religious reason.
mm,
Doesn't make sense. I'm like, you can't tell us what to eat or what not to eat and when to eat.
mm,
No one should be able to dictate that to
mm,
you. So I mean that's the only thing, but otherwise, and those are like sporadically somebody wants to get highlighted in the media, they'd go around saying something like that.
mm,
But otherwise we get a lot of, I mean, a lot of southern states in India have a lot of beef.
mm. Yeah,
The
so
southern state of Kerala has a lot of beef. Goa
mm,
has a lot of beef. So yeah, so I mean, the north of India basically has bans on and beef, and India is one of the largest exporters of beef also
mhm,
in the world.
mhm.
It's, I think, the second or the third largest exporter of beef.
Yeah, yeah. See, there's something that I've like. One of the reasons why I wanted to speak to you is there's oftentimes when it comes to uh, brown people of different hues, um, particularly in the medical literature, we are. It feels like it feels like we're described as faulty. From my standpoint, when I'm hearing these things, it's almost like brown people are faulty. That is the messaging that we get. So we are more prone to the diabetes. We're more prone to the heart disease, to the cancers, all of these different things. And I always say to people, no, like we're not faulty. There is something else there, whether it's a cultural issue, a traditional issue, um, a habit issue that is born from kind of whichever kind of culture we're from. um, these are the things that we have to wrestle with, as opposed to when they say, you're more prone to this disease. Therefore, it almost sometimes feels like a justification as to why we should have or be given more medication or be exposed to more medication. So it's always refreshing to hear the way you described it earlier, that yes, you can have a predisposition, but something needs to turn the switch. And we have the ability with our diets, with our lifestyles, to not turn that switch. So
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of appreciate hearing from you and hearing, how you describe it, a lot more eloquent than I could describe it anyway. Yeah. So, Ankur, so you're having chicken for dinner, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a long day, 4 hours of travel, right?
4 hours, 4.5 hours.
And then you
Yeah.
come straight to do this. And, I appreciate
Yeah.
this as well, with all the technical errors that I've had along the way.
That's all right, man. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, man. Yeah, I've been looking forward to
This is
this.
awesome, man. This is awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to, as I said, this is the aim of this is to kind of put it together as like an audio documentary. So I'm going to be pulling from using different voices, your voice. In the next couple of weeks, I'm talking to Dr. Anthony Chafee as well. So kind of using some of his words as well for the audio.
That's gonna be
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
I've
That's
been
gonna be
looking
awesome.
forward to
Yeah.
speaking to him.
I love the guy, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's so
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
And I'm going to be using some of the snippets from this and, kind of popping up on my social media. Um, yeah,
Sure.
and there's just one last thing. Like I have some family members that are in the medical industry, and one thing that they kind of feel very uncomfortable with is saying that, in private they'll say it, but for some reason in public they feel very reluctant to mention it. But they say that people from South Asia, they're seeing more and more people in the hospitals, in the GP surgeries here in the UK. So, to have people like yourself who are kind of advocating and speaking up, I think is really important, because, we need voices from every sector, every corner, speaking about
Yeah.
this and talking about the benefits of, improving your metabolic health with the foods that you eat, and potentially breaking cultural, political, traditional and breaking habits as well. So yeah, I appreciate you, and I thank you for what you do.
Thanks a
Yeah.
lot, man. Yeah. Thank you so much,
Okay.
man. If you, yeah,
Blessings to
yeah, it's
you,
been a
and
pleasure.
yeah,
You
have a
too.
good dinner and have a good rest. And yeah,
Right,
thank
man.
you so much.
Thank you
Cheers,
so
pal.
much, man. Take care.
Take care.
Good night, man.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. See ya.